Update 7.8 has released, and we have 7 new refines to talk about. In this video, we'll talk about Travant, Echidna, Zed, and MAREETA'. Stay tuned for part 2, where we have Spring Est, plus remixes for Mythic Freya and Legendary Seliph. We'll go over Amblem's new weapons, plus discuss some build ideas. First up, Travant is a heroic girl lance flyer who had some wonky beginnings. He's a slower unit focusing on defense and basically had the same stats as Altena, who released at the same time, but as a demote. Well, Altena had a unique lance, while Travant came with the Silver Lance Plus. Despite being some of the strongest weapons in the main game, Silver weapons do nothing in Fae. They literally have no extra effects and don't have bonus might to compensate, or enough of it I should say. This wasn't like a year 1 type oversight. Travant's a book 4 unit, so everyone was just boggled by that decision. Well, 3 years later, Travant gets the THRACIA KINGLANCE. It has 16 might and out shield, so Travant can use his high base defense to tank arrows. If the foe initiates or has more than 75% HP, grant plus for all stats, inflict attack debuffs, and inflict guard on the foe. The attack debuffs are equal to 15% of Travant's defense at start of combat. 40 flat defense equates to -6 attack debuffs, for example. As for the refine, if Travant has more than 25% HP, grant plus 4 stats, a free follow-up attack, and breath type cooldown reduction. All in all, not too shabby. THRACIA KINGLANCE has some decent perks for a slow flyer, out shield, basically special fighter, and then a free follow-up attack. Nothing super complex here, but breath type cooldown is a good bonus. Travant does get a journal plus 8 to all stats, although his speed and res aren't exactly in the best spots. If you want to tank magic, you'll need a lot more investment, and Travant will get doubled by most decent attackers. In terms of builds, I would say the most obvious skill to build around is probably Guard Bearing 4. 60% damage reduction on first fights in a phase, 30% DR after. It works on both phases, which is good, and it even has speed and defense debuffs. Rearmed Ingrid is currently back on a banner if you want this skill. To pair with it, you could go Distant Counter, although tanking mages is still a bit iffy. You could do Distant Foil to specialize in physical matchups, and for C skills, Rain debuffs are consistent options. For Travant, since he does get bonus debuffs for flat defense, you may instead want Attacking Defense Oath. Sadly, no tier 4 version just yet, but it'll come eventually. You could also do Attacking Defense Menace. Solid Ground is another option, but you need 7 flat defense to gain 1 point of attack debuffs, so I wouldn't say it's a must chase. Solid Ground further drops resistance, while the basic Attacking Defense Catch won't do that. We recently had Defense and Res Catch 4 from Ephemera as well if you want to go with that. Let's now talk about Wyvern Flight / Flow Flight. Not impossible to use, but they involve speed checks. Wyverns is also assertive combat as well, which the KINGLANCE does not help with. If you want to go that route, speed buffs and debuffs are basically a must. Personally, I would just go with Guard Bearing's %DR, even if it is counterable. For other B skills, Flow technically works for Travant's follow-up. Even the new Flow Desperation skill technically works as a dive bomb type replacement. I wouldn't really recommend it though. Near Choice for Kanto is fine, and you can pair that with Attack Smoke 4 for some follow-up denial and debuffs. Travant can also run any of the flyer mobility options, and we do also have Rain Snap for extra movement, although there was only one of those so far. Overall, Travant's THRACIA KINGLANCE is decent, out shield on a beefy flyer is always nice, and special fighter with a follow-up attack is fine for general content. Our next refine goes to Echidna, who's an ex-infantry demote. She was a decently popular merge project for her balanced stat spread, which could work with the jack of all trades, distant counter type builds. Well, maybe one of the devs like that playstyle, because Western X will make any DC users pretty happy. This weapon has 16 might, and if unit is within 3 spaces of an ally, grant plus 4 stats, give 30% DR for 1 hit, empowers Echidna's counterattack with the total damage reduced from that, and last, she restores 7 HP after combat. We got Hans within the last year, but Echidna is kind of stepping on his toes a bit. Slightly less damage reduction, but same reflected damage effect. As for the refine, if foe initiates or has more than 75% HP, grant plus 4 stats and the unity effect for all 4 stats, plus Echidna also gets breath type cooldown. Let's piece together why Western X seems very targeted at distant counter usage. First off, it is stat focused with +8 to all stats and full unity coverage. Echidna welcomes any debuffs or panic to hit her. You then got 30% damage reduction to tank a hit, and that becomes extra counterattack damage. Echidna also gets extra cooldown reduction, so that can lead into a special, also proccing on the counterattack. After combat, she will heal 7 HP. if you're a fan of the slightly faster axe units with okay defense and res, then Echidna may have distanced herself enough to stand out. For the distant counter type builds, if you want to greed, you can use distant attack and speed solo, otherwise distant dart or pressure is fine. Echidna can parry these with speed focused skills, although she won't be the absolute fastest out there. You could go with the classic distant counter plus dodge B skill build, more percent DR to tank a hit, which means more empowered counterattack damage. If you prefer to stay up close, then Echidna can stack Unity skills. She is absolutely another prime teammate for Legendary Robin and Grand Strategy. He would be really great to have for the distant counter build too. While more percent damage reduction is nice, no follow-up is also important if you want to go for a speedier build, and the new physical no follow also cuts enemy DR in half. This is good for the empowered counterattack, but you could also go for full burst with Special Sparrow 4. Unfortunately, no slang on the weapon, but you could still run something like Vital Astra just for damage. Remember, Echidna has breath type cooldown, so she can charge 2 cooldown specials for retaliation. You could also do times pulse to charge 3 cooldown Luna, Bonfire, or Iceberg. Another distant counter option is Nelsie Disrupt 4. If you aren't confident in speed stacking, this provides 30% damage reduction, but also the ability to counter Fire Sweep. That is a pretty valuable effect, as another unit we'll talk about will showcase later. Now, for some other general skills, Echidna could run attack and speed finish with her cooldown reduction, and that's extra healing. Bulwark also provides healing, maybe use it with the Unity stacking route. For some stats, Oath 4, Menace, Smoke 4s, and Bonus Doubler are all fine options. You can mix these in with any of the playstyles for Echidna. While I have showed speed skills for the general jack of all trades type speedy builds, Echidna could go more defensive if you want. Again, Unity stacking plus Legendary Robin is disgusting. You could run guard or deflect seals if brave attacks pose a threat. Lulls are fine, dual stances work, seal 4 B skills also work. Part of the appeal of units like Echidna is that build freedom. Western Axe is an excellent new weapon to continue having that flexibility. Next up, Sed is a green adventure mage and one of our retired 5 stars. Sed's a very simple offensive mage, and Winds of Silesses were fine, keeps to that idea. This 14-might tome grants a flat +3 speed. If Sed initiates or is only next to one ally, he gets +6 attack and speed, and inflicts speed and res debuffs equal to 20% of his speed stat at start of combat. Very simple effect, basically just pure stats. If Sed were to have 40 flat speed, he inflicts -8 speed and res on the foe. If you hit 50 flat speed, that's -10 debuffs. For the activation condition, it always works in the player phase now, and Sed can proc it easier on the enemy phase. I would suggest not enemy phasing with this guy. For the Refined, at start of turn, if Sed has more than 25% HP, he gets +6 attack and speed field buffs, the Desperation status, and a breath type cooldown status. If he has more than 25% HP in combat, he gets another +5 attack and speed. This is probably one of the simplest refines ever. Altogether, Sed just gets +17 attack and speed. Technically, that's +20 with the flat stat boost. If he can hit 50 flat speed, which is possible with full investment, then Sed inflicts -10 speed and res on the foe. +20 speed, -10 speed on the foe, that is basically a +30 speed advantage for Sed just from this weapon. That is the kind of speed you need in today's game. It's also quite a lot of extra damage as well. Sed then has full HP Desperation to hit twice in a row, and he has cooldown reduction to charge a special on hit 1, proc it on hit 2. That's pretty much his entire game plan, player phase initiator with full offensive stats. Sed is definitely following in the footsteps of Lewin's for Seti, pure attack and speed, and desperation. Like any fast attacker, Sed really wants offense in the follow-up to ensure he doubles tanks, and the new tier 4 options are good. Magic No Follow has the partial percent DR piercing, which is also kind of a must these days. You can pair that with any attack and speed booster such as Finish 4, Ideal 4, or even Unity. Depending on what special you want to run, Times Pulse can get Luna or Draconic Aura to proc on the second hit, or it can counteract Guard for a Moonbrain Glimmer. You could also use Tempo, but I feel it's a little wasted on Sed. As for Special Spiral, this can also act to offset Guard effects for say Luna, but you need to actually get to a special proc first. It also fully pierces DR skills when Sed does hit with his special. You technically can use it for 4 cooldown options like Dragon Fang or Astra as well. If you don't have these skills, low speed and res is a simple but reliable damage booster, cuts those field buffs down. For Sacred Seals, insert your favorite attack and speed booster. No follow-up can also go here as well. Unless you have a fully invested set, I would just plan to use him, or plan to not get touched with him. It's basically over if his 2 hits do not KO and the enemy counters back. If you want a chance to take some hits, you can run things like Demon Oath, preferably the tier 4 whenever that comes out. Said what can fully buff up, get warping, and then you can even run something like Bonus Doubler to double all of those field buffs. Panic Smoke 4 or Speed Smoke 4 can also grant stat advantages or dodge. For menaces, probably don't want to run Attack and Speed Menace since Zed also gets Attack and Speed field buffs. You could do Defense Menace like Oath 4, but Zed also kind of wants more speed insurance. That is pretty much his whole deal, outspeed even the fastest units out there. There is another safety option in Wind or Water Sweep. You need no follow-up for those, but those at least block counterattacks in case Zed fails to get the KO. Not an ideal situation, but not dying is also usually better than Faye. Overall, really simple refine for Zed, but he brings some serious speed to the table. A lot of new units can get 10 to 15 extra speed just from their weapons, so this refine isn't exactly overkill. It's kind of a sad necessity. Last up for part 1, we have regular Mareeta. She's a sword infantry unit with great speed, and I want to say the damage reduction craze with things like dodge started getting out of hand when she arrived. I believe she was the first unit with a dodge B skill, and you know how it's been progressing from there. For her sword, it has some new base effects, it still excites specials. Now if Mareeta initiates or is next to one or fewer allies, she's going to get the +4 stats, full no follow-up effects, and will neutralize enemy speed and defense field buffs. Previously a solo type weapon, this weapon is much easier to use and gained low speed and defense. For the refine, if Mareeta has 125% HP, she gets another +4 stats, no guard, true damage on hit equal to 10% speed, and when her special triggers, Mareeta pierces % damage reduction skills. A lot of good stuff here, and it frees up Mareeta from needing certain skills. She has full no follow-up, which a lot of newer swordmasters are kind of foregoing. They're assuming you get it from somewhere else. Mareeta will also have low speed and defense, no guard, and you don't need Special Sprout 4 or the tier 4 no follow-up because she pierces damage reduction already. With that said though, Mareeta isn't as free to run whatever she wants. You notice no damage reduction in her weapon, and if you want to run Vital Astra for damage reduction, then you need Times Pulse, preferably the tier 4. Pre-charge Vital Astra also lets Mareeta get 2 activations if she gets hit back. 30% speed as special damage plus 10% speed as true damage essentially gives us regular Astra damage. How topical. Funny enough, if you do run Vital Astra, which you need to steal from Ascended Mareeta, and you run Times Pulse 4, then technically this refine has more perks than Ascended Mareeta's weapon. She was considered a 2.0 modern version of the OG Mareeta here, so it's kinda awkward that we're turning things around. This does come at a cost though. It basically longs your C skill to Times Pulse. Without it, you get no extra dodge DR and no double Vital Astra procs, which is kind of what this refine is pointing to. You could also just outsource Times Pulse to someone else like Asker, but having it on Mareeta herself lets her just loop it over and over. Now the game plan is basically pre-charge Vital Astra, initiate with it and pierce tier skills, get hit back, which will recharge Vital Astra thanks to no guard and slaying, and then you proc it again on hit 2. Very simple, but Mareeta can get bursted down on the foe's counter. If you upgrade to a tier 4 dodge skill, then with Vital Astra, she can get 65% damage reduction, which ain't bad. If you can get guards somehow, that would also be nice to avoid big special counters. For the rest of this build, obviously, double special procs and attack speed finish 4 is just too good together. Run your favorite attack speed Sacred Seal like Solo. For some alterations, you could run Distant Counter, obviously susceptible to enemy DR piercing, but that's just how it is. For A skills, Flash Sparrow could be used if you want to run higher cooldown specials, Surge Sparrow can heal more than Finish 4, and Hexblade gives you that adaptive damage. Mareeta is definitely more of an aggressive player face swordmaster than an annoying defensive one like Summer Fjorm or maybe even Fallen Byleth. Unfortunately, if you go for that Times Pulse build, you can't run the common C skills like Speed Smoke 4, Menace, or even Oath 4. It also requires Mareeta to get hit back, which is always risky. There are some interesting B skills you could use instead of dodge. Guard 4 has DR for 1 hit, and with the guard effect obviously. Desperation 4 works at full HP now, but you can't get double special activations. Then there is Brash Assault 4, which has DR as well, and the Empowered Counter, just for even more damage. Now you could run Gale Force if you want, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having DR Piercing. Overall though, this refine makes Mareeta a bit similar to say Ascended Fur. Ideally they both want to spam double Vital Astra procs, but Mareeta gets that full DR Piercing on specials, whereas Fur has the no tier for no follow up for 50% pierce on all attacks. They are more offense oriented sword masters, I would say. You can run distant counter or dodge stacking builds, but other sword masters are definitely better at it. Obviously this isn't a bad refine, it's just that sword infantry standards continue to get crazier and crazier. It's been especially bad this year. Now, that's going to be it for part 1 of the update 7.8 refines. Let me know your thoughts on these units and share any builds you plan to run if you do grab these refines. In part 2, we'll go over Spring Est, Mythic Freya, and Legendary Seliph. If you're a Seliph fan, you do not want to miss that one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.